In the second episode of Code Interpreter series, I'm going to show you how you can clean up and prepare your dataset for data analysis directly inside ChatGPT. With simple prompts, you are going to let Code Interpreter manipulate, prepare, and clean up the dataset for you. And then Code Interpreter is going to give you a link where you can download the new clean dataset. Alright, so in this video, we are going to be using this dataset. This dataset includes information about films, and the dataset is very messy. But for the sake of this video, I really wanted to test the Code Interpreter's capabilities. You can see that even the names of the columns are not correct over here. For example, this one should be named original title, but it has some special characters there as well. Then we have the release year. In this case, this is not a date format whatsoever. And if there was an attempt to look like a date, all of them have different formats. We have the genre of the film, and then you can see it's spelled incorrectly. We have duration, which is how long is the film in minutes. You can see we have some missing values, then we have some zeros, as well as some string text format over here. We have country, again missing value. Then we have content rating with missing values over here, as well as all of them are different. And then in terms of the numbers, you can see that the income is not formatted correctly. We don't have any thousand separators. And then we also have a space between the $sign and the number. In the votes and score, the numbers are not formatted once again. You can see that in the score, we are using 9.3, so a point as a decimal number. But here we are using comma as a separator, 8.9. And then we also even add some text next to it. And there are also some plus signs over here. In the whole data set, we have one empty row, and in total, we have 102 rows. All right, so right now we are going to go back to ChatGPT and start preparing the dataset for the data analysis. If you don't know how to start with Code Interpreter, definitely watch my first episode of this series where I tell you exactly how to do it step by step. All right, so after we chose the Code Interpreter in our chat, we are able to upload files. So we are going to hit upload file, and we are going to go and choose the messy dataset that we have just seen. In this case, I'm starting to write a very simple prompt. Prepare this dataset for a data analysis. I'm going to send this over. The Code Interpreter is being used. You can see it by clicking on this arrow over here. So the Code Interpreter in ChatGPT writes that it appears that the dataset is not in the UTF-8 encoding, which is causing issues during the importing process. So firstly, we got a problem with the file, and Code Interpreter recognized this and is automatically trying to solve this. It's attempting to load the dataset using the ISO 8859. Then we get another problem with the CSV file. It seems like the CSV file cannot be read correctly due to issue with the data format. This could be due to many reasons, such as inconsistent use of delimiters or incorrectly formatted data, which obviously is our case. And then Code Interpreter is starting to go step by step to have a look at the data and then prepare it and format it for the data analysis. So as a first step, let's try to read the file with different delimiter. The current delimiter is comma, which is default for CSV files. However, sometimes it uses semicolons, tabs, and spaces. That's the case as we have seen in the dataset. It's trying to solve the problem with the delimiters. Then it found some row that was entirely having a different delimiter. And then it's trying to read the file once again and resolve this problem. It then successfully loaded the dataset, but it obviously found other problems with the dataset. It appears that there are several issues with the dataset that need to be addressed. Column names contain special characters, which was the case that we saw when I was showing you the dataset. Data format inconsistency. So the release year column seems to have dates in different formats, which is also true. Then we have some extra column. There is an extra column unnamed 8 that seems to contain only 0 values. And then we have formatting issues with income, votes, score, and columns. The great thing about the Code Interpreter is that it automatically has a look at the column, and then it summarizes the problem for you when it analyzes the dataset. So in this case, it's saying that these columns contain non-numeric characters that need to be removed in order to convert these columns to numerical data types. So then it's starting to address the issue one by one. Firstly, they are going to clean up the column names. If you click on the arrow over here, you can see that the column names have been titled differently, and it replaces the special character with nothing, as well as this one over here. Then it says the column names have been successfully cleaned. And right now it's looking at the release year. we will attempt to convert the column to date-time format, which will make it easier to work with the dates. And then it automatically converted it into the correct format for us, so we don't have to do that. The next step is to remove the unnamed column, which contains no data. After that, it's going to proceed with the cleaning of the columns named income, votes, and score. They all contain different formats, as you have seen, and sometimes it's even a combination of both strings or text and integers or numbers. All right, so it correctly defined that the income, votes, and score is a number or integer. So it converted all of them into numerical data types. However, it found some problem with the votes column, and then it converted all the numbers into NaN. And then it also tries to tell you why this happened. So it's mostly because of the dot as a thousand separator. And since pandas interprets a period as a decimal point, the conversion to numeric data type might have failed. Then it's trying to solve this issue for us. So here it kind of got confused because the dataset is very messy, and it contains both the thousand and comma as a thousand separator, but as well as a decimal number. So it just did not know what to do with this. So it went into this loop of correcting itself and trying to solve this problem for us. Again, this dataset is very messy. You're most likely not gonna encounter this problem, but I just wanted to show you the capabilities of Code Interpreter. But luckily, at the end of the answer, we got this sentence: I'll attempt a different approach to clean and convert the votes column. Let's inspect some of the unique values in the votes column to understand the issue better. So here I'm just going to type down, yes, please continue. And right now we are going to see whether it can solve the votes column problem. All right, and we got the results right now. Firstly, it identified a different problem that might be causing this. One possible issue could be the presence of non-standard characters or spaces that are not being removed by the current cleaning process. To handle this, let's first convert the votes column to string type, then remove all non-numeric characters and extra spaces, and finally convert it back to numeric type. And Code Interpreter was actually able to solve this big issue for us. I apologize for the confusion earlier. The issue with the votes column has been resolved. And then the Code Interpreter has been used once again, and right now we get the corrected column names. If you remember, the title and the genre had special characters, but right now it's been corrected. We then get the name of the column and what each column represents. So for example, here, release year, the release date of the movie, this has been converted to datetime format. All right, so right now we know that it converted the year into correct format. It renamed all the columns correctly as well. And then it set up the right formats for each columns with the separators as well. But you might also notice that there were some missing values over here. So because I don't know if this was handled as well, I'm just going to give Code Interpreter a prompt to give me the link to download this file. I'm going to write down, give me a link to download this new dataset. I'm going to send this over, and Code Interpreter is going to be able to do this because it stores all the information for us. We are right now going to download the CSV file by clicking on this link. We got it downloaded as a cleaned dataset. So let's have a look at that. All right, so right now, after performing a few steps, we got this data set over here, and we can see clearly that there is a problem with missing values. But as you can see, there have been a lot of work if you compare it to the original data set. Code Interpreter converted the income, votes, and score into numbers. Then it also renamed the columns for us and converted the release year into one consistent date. All right, so right now what we are going to do is that we are going to tell Code Interpreter to handle the missing values. I'm going to write down, please handle the missing values in the dataset now, and send this over. All right, and we got the results. Let's first check how many missing values we have in each column. So then we get this nice summary of our dataset with each column and how many missing values we have. In the content rating, we have 24 missing values, which is the highest number of all. There are several strategies how you can fill out the missing data in your dataset. The most commons are to fill out the data with the most repeated words if we are talking about categorical data. But if we are talking in values and numbers, we can usually fill out the data in 3 different ways: computing averages, medians, or modes. Averages, just fill out the average of the column in the missing values. With medians, you are looking at the middle number in the dataset. Median and averages are very similar, but median you use when you want to avoid the skewness of the data. So if you have very high number in your dataset, you can expect that this number is going to push the whole average up. So then what you do is that you use the median. And then the mode is basically when you use the most repeated number in the dataset. But you don't have to know these tactics. You can see that Code Interpreter actually gives you the options, and then it's going to let you know which one is going to choose. So for categorical data, we could fill out the missing values with the most frequent categories and specific value like unknown, or use a predictive model to estimate the missing value. For numerical data, like income, votes, and score, we could fill out missing values with a central tendency measure like mean or median. For data like release year, we could fill out the missing values with specific date, the most frequent date, or use predictive model once again. And for identifiers like the title ID, it might be best to drop the rows with missing values. So then it's letting us know that it's going to drop the whole row when there is no title ID, which makes sense in our case. And then it's going to fill out the missing values for other columns using appropriate strategies. You can also let Code Interpreter know which strategy you would want to use. In our case, we have a film dataset, which is very hard to, predict different numbers such as duration for a film and fill out the information for the specific film when we don't really know the exact number. So predicting or guessing the number or making averages and medians is actually not a good strategy in our case. But if you have a different data set where you are measuring sales, marketing campaigns, and the data is more numerical, you can definitely go and use medians, modes, averages, and whatever Code Interpreter is going to recommend you. In our case, I'm going to write down, yes, please drop all the rows where there is at least one missing data. I'm going to send this over. And this is obviously not good because we are going to lose a lot of data about our films. But in our case, it just makes sense. But in this case, we are just going to drop it off. All right, and just like that, we got the results. All rows with at least one missing value have been dropped from the dataset. Now there are no missing values in the dataset. Each column has 0 missing values. You can proceed with your data analysis using the cleaned dataset. And then it also tells us if you want to download this dataset with the missing values removed, I can provide a link for that as well. And we are going to have a second look at the dataset. In this case, we could also use the different strategy that Code Interpreter was telling us, and that was to just fill out the data with unknown as a word. But then if you proceed with the data analysis with this data set, it would just simply be bad because in one column you would have different types of formats. If I'm going to click on this one, I'm going to have it downloaded here. I'm going to open it up. And right now you can see that the row that was empty over here is gone. But as you can see, we still have some missing values over here in the duration column. For example, here we have nothing, and here we have 0, infinite, and some random characters as well. So the last step will be to clean up the duration column. So here I'm writing down, please remove all rows that don't have clean number in the duration column. And Code Interpreter actually started to clean up the column for us. It firstly correctly decided that it has to have a positive integer in the duration column, since movie durations are typically measured in whole minutes. Then it converted everything into integer, so then it can have a look at which rows are not numbers. Then it found that there were some non-numerical numbers, as we have seen in the dataset as well. Then we got the results that the rows with non-numerical values in the duration column have been successfully removed. And it's prompting us to have a look at the dataset by downloading it once again. I'm going to type down yes. All right, and we got a new link to download this file. I'm going to click on it, and if we open the final dataset, you can see that the whole duration column right now only has the number of minutes for each film. You can see that there are no missing values in the column, as well as only integers remain in this column. Just like that, we clean up the dataset as much as possible. It was a very messy dataset, and sometimes Code Interpreter had to be run multiple times. So this shows you how you can actually clean up the dataset if you don't know how to code. If you enjoyed this episode, please give this video a thumbs up. If you are interested in tech, AI, and Code Interpreter and how you can use it to perform data analysis, then definitely subscribe down below because I post every single week. Thank you so much and have a great day.